Honored to sit down, longtime friend, guy I admire in the coaching community, head coach, New Mexico State, Brian Green. Greeny, thanks for jumping on with us.
Sheets, thanks for having me. Thanks for having New Mexico State. Congrats on what you've done here. I've heard your name so many times this convention and what you've done for the ABCA as a former Wildcat, being a part of that family, but seeing what you've grown in. And I'm being serious. I'd like to take the opportunity, but you're blowing this thing up. The convention continues to get better. I'm having a blast, and I'm proud of you, and
Thanks,
what you've
brother.
done, man. You're killing it, and there's a lot of people who are seeing that. So congrats on this convention and what's going on.
Appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
I know Craig and I just talked a little while ago in our team, and we did not imagine our numbers getting to this place. 6,650 coaches, our biggest convention ever by far. Our team's fired up. We get a chance to finish tonight, knock out tomorrow, finish up around lunch. We'll probably all take our suits off, take our slacks off, get in some comfy clothes, grab some lunch, and look at each other like, what just happened?
Right.
But that's what that's really accentuates your point that it's growing to a place where we were just talking before we got recording. The feel is different. The momentum seems large, and we've got our hands all over it. But more than that, it's what our coaches are getting out of this experience. That's what matters to me. So directly to you, convention experience the last few years you were mentioning has just changed a little bit. Interacting with more coaches, gaining more information. You just want to open that up a little bit?
I'd love to. We were just talking about that. And what the convention has changed for me dramatically in the last 5 years. You always come to the convention and you're excited and you're ready for the information. But I just think the networking component of it is completely different. That's the exciting part for me. And Sheets, there's a couple of reasons why I share that with so many other coaches. But
Sure.
I think what you guys are doing year-round,
Yes.
with the Barnstormers,
Yep.
with the ACE, and with
Yep.
the youth clinics, we're getting an opportunity to meet more of our coaches regionally.
Yeah.
And we were a part of that, in both of those
No
programs.
doubt. Yeah.
But so there's a bigger following that comes in. We had our New Mexico group of coaches that we met up in the bar, and
Sure.
But I think one of the bigger feels and differences that I'm experiencing with the culture of the ABCA right now is an openness and a willingness to share. I think that part's always been there, but you don't see the group over there and the group over there and
Right.
the group over here. I feel like you've got a family component happening of where those three groups are just all in the middle, and we've just got one big, huge circle talking about baseball and recruiting and leadership and you name it. That's what's really fun for me because this is not about just seeing my old friends and my old coaching buddies.
No doubt.
This is about meeting new people and becoming a better coach when I leave here. So the experience has been phenomenal. My whole staff is here. That's 4 years in a row.
Yeah.
That will never change, and it's a thrill to come here. It's a lot more than just a kickoff to our season.
I love it. I love it. It's an interesting thing. You actually got mentioned yesterday. We were talking infield play with Billy Boyer, who's now an infield coach, minor league coach with Minnesota Twins, and I've referenced you obviously a lot about just when I came in as a young coach, and I'm going to spin this back to you. When I was at Kentucky, and I'm coming out of coaching NAIA baseball for a couple of years, and I've been spending a year on staff with Coach Cohen, and then you're able to come on staff at Kentucky, and I'll never forget this, man, and I hope you remember it too, is we're talking base running, we go out to first base, and you say, so Sheets, how would you take your lead? And it was a moment where I went, I don't have a system. I don't know. You just get out here, and you go, no, it's right, left, right, shovel, shovel, and you're right there. And I went, no, wait a minute. But then it was more than that. Then it birthed into infield catch play routines, which we referenced again with Billy yesterday. It was obviously the offensive stuff, which we'll get to. But from the point I'm trying to make is, as a young coach, can you go back to some of those early days of breaking into coaching, probably some times at Riverside, even maybe in the volunteer at Oregon State, where you just went, man, I just don't have this thing figured out. Can you go to some of those maybe those humble moments, humble beginnings?
I remember a couple of those absolute identical moments that you just described is when I got my first paying job. I had just been the volunteer at Oregon State, so I'm with Pat Casey, Dan Spencer, Gary Henderson, an unbelievable staff.
No doubt.
I'm completely out over my skis, but I'm going to put my head down, be loyal, and just go.
Sure.
Honored for that opportunity. But then when I got my first paying opportunity with Rich Hill,
Yeah.
a lot of those things that you had just described, I was fortunate enough at 24-25 with Dennis Rogers. I was so new and so green that he just kind of filled my head. And I think when I got a little bit older, when you start to think that maybe you're starting to get set in an idea and a philosophy.
Sure.
And then here comes Rich Hill in 2001, 2002, and he did the exact same thing to me that you just described.
Yeah.
And I essentially just transferred a lot of the information
So
that I
you teed
learned
me
there.
up. That's what
I really did. And
Awesome.
same thing, right, left, right,
Yeah.
shuffle, extend.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about other things with offense. But, all of those things, it's this angle, it's that angle. And then you hear Coach Mosiello talking about essentially the same thing today, but in his own way.
Sure.
And that's what's so exciting, because that's what this thing is about. This is not about us sitting in a lab, and I don't mean analytics and science. I mean legitimately sitting in a lab by yourself
Sure.
and making up theory. We're going to take things from people that we trust, whether that's in baseball, on or off the field,
No
because
doubt.
if we trust them, we trust them.
Yep.
And with us in this coaching profession, we're going to want to take from people that are truly successful. So that's where it starts. And then I think, obviously, we always evolve into our own things that become important to us.
No doubt.
But from Pat Casey to Rich Hill, those first couple years with Gary Henderson and Dan Spencer, when here's a legitimate bunt defensive system that I've never seen in my life, and here's a mass fungo program for practice, and you realize, boy, I got a lot to learn. Put your head down,
boy.
and it's time to really get going.
That's it.
Yeah,
I'll never forget the mass fungo routine. And we took that routine and we put it into, at that time, Microsoft Publisher, and now we had the diagram.
Sure.
And you went out recruiting one day, and Gary said, "All right, Sheets, you got the mass fungo, you got to teach it." And I do. This is Greeny's. This isn't mine. This is Greeny's. I need
That's
him
right.
here. But it was those moments that I think as a young coach, there's a lot of guys out here, and I'll relate it to this. They're listening to guys up on the stage, and certainly you being a main stage speaker a couple times and presenting that information. I think there's young coaches that hear that information, they go, well, it doesn't necessarily apply to me. It's a little bit over top. How would you bring them back down to go, no, that is right there for you?
Yeah, I think the most important thing, and in Sheets, whether we're fortunate enough to be with unbelievable coaches or be amongst an unbelievable staff like we had at Kentucky
Sure.
with all of those personalities, and or I think sometimes it can be secondary. For what I described in the bar last night with 30 people and people that might not be in your circle,
Yeah.
there is always something you can learn. And I'd like to, there's an example here. After leaving UCLA to go to Kentucky, I know that the University of Kentucky staff, where Coach Cohen was the head coach, and then Coach Henderson took over at
Yep.
Kentucky when Coach Cohen had moved to Mississippi State. And I know that one of the rules that they had as a staff was that each, and you might remember this at Kentucky being there, I was the new guy coming in, was
Yep.
that the coaches, you are going to be responsible for getting out 3 times a year and speaking on behalf of yourself and the program.
It's awesome.
And for me, whenever I think a coach is in that regard, I think back to even being at Oregon State and going out and speaking at the Oregon High School Coaches Convention in 2001, and I'm
Yeah.
30 years old. I don't think there's any greater opportunity to really fine-tune your craft and to find out what's really important for you
No doubt.
than to get out and present and share, just like
Yeah.
we tell our players.
No doubt.
It's important that you tell it to us one-on-one, but declare it to your team, and then the accountability will go up. And I think
Yeah.
for us as coaches, with regards to that thought,
Yep.
boy, I think create a philosophy that you feel is yours, whether it is truly yours or not is not the point.
Yep.
Create a system that's important to you, and then get out and share it and present it, and you've got an opportunity to really fine-tune it, and then you've got an opportunity to transfer it to your players and be a great communicator, and I think
doubt.
that's essentially what it's about.
Okay. I had linked Jared on a little bit earlier, and obviously you two are combined in the fact that you guys came on the podcast together, and just an absolute just dynamite conversation, and certainly one that challenged me. Even though I thought I knew where you were going to go with a lot of stuff, I didn't. You challenged me. Hearing Link's information was outstanding. He made a point a minute ago, and again, track his career, what he built at Auburn, and then obviously to move on and take the head coaching job at UNCG, what you've done coming from UCLA to Kentucky, building prolific offenses, Golden Spikes Award winners, then having the opportunity to come and again, build more prolific offenses at New Mexico State. But more than that was just the fact that he talked about coming from being the true hitting coach and having a plan, a philosophy, in essence, a system. Now you're the head coach. Now you've got that, but you've also got a system for the program. How was your transition coming from, again, purely focused at the infield play and hitting to now, all of it kind of falls on me? How was that transition?
Awesome question, and because it's so relevant, and I remember these things so vividly.
Yeah.
You know, and I share this a lot with our assistants and our staff, but, you know, as Link probably shared the exact same thing, when you're an assistant coach, you are responsible for a specific area, and you're really fine-tuned and focused on that area.
Honed, no doubt.
And you've got time to spend specifically on just that area.
Sure.
So as a hitting coach, what was really important to me, you were there, but the relationships within the individual player.
No doubt.
You know, I had 16 hitters, maybe 17. I didn't have 35 players,
No doubt.
half of them being pitchers. So that in itself really changes where you go, to answer your question, from being an assistant to head coach. Where it goes is to, you've really got to figure out, find out, and really decipher what is truly important to you, which was so awesome in watching and listening to Link.
Yeah.
The primary focus that I took out of that was offensive approach.
Yes.
That's how a head coach talks, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think when you're an assistant coach, clearly offensive approach is critical, but there is also a huge component of swing mechanics, drills, all those things that are important.
That's an interesting, yeah.
Yeah, and I really think the transition when you go to assistant to head, when it becomes program-wide, it goes into, you've got great assistant coaches. If you didn't, you wouldn't hire them. You want to give them exactly what you were lucky enough to have when you had your opportunity. So they'll handle the swing. The head coach is always going to be invested in relationships, but they'll handle the nuts and bolts. So you've really got to do a good job as the leader to understand or communicate, guys, these are the 3, 4, 5 bullet points. This is what our offense needs to look like. Coach Mo talked about that today. What's your vision? What's it supposed to look like? I think it's so critical that you communicate that to your assistants. So where does it change? It gets more broad, but then it also gets more defined in terms of how it's supposed to look.
No doubt.
And what specific bullet points you want to spend your time on getting really good at. And I think that's the biggest separator and change that you evolve into, when your position changes. Yeah.
It's not that the investment changes, but it just seems like I think of the right word here. It just seems like you said, that the finer details become more finer, more fine. It's probably a better way to say it. Become more fine as you get that head coaching title, because again, I think at the end of the day, man, everything falls on your pillow. Yeah. And I think that's a interesting concept, especially for young coaches. And I think it's you spend a lot of years as an assistant coach, and so I know you're thinking through it and you're developing your plan. And as long as when I get my opportunity, man, I know what I'm going to do. How has any of that shifted? Again, and we're going to lead this into New Mexico State, but your vision and plan for how you thought you would run things as a head coach, has that shifted now that you've been in it for a few years when you look back?
100%. And when I say that, the vision, the goal, and having a clear identity a vision of how we wanted it to look, how I wanted it to look as the head coach, and what I wanted the team that I was putting on the field, and what I wanted our coaching staff culture to feel like and look like. Right. That part hasn't changed. Yep. The how part of how to get that done has completely changed.
Tell me about it.
Coach Henderson used to say this all the time, and half the time as an assistant, you're not sure if you're getting jabbed at or not. Sure. But he always used to say
with Gary.
With Coach, with Gary, and Gary would say, Brian, when you get your opportunity, you'll understand, and until you get it, you don't understand. And he would even say, Brian, I don't mean that condescending. I don't mean that to take a shot. I'm just telling you it's completely different when you get in that chair.
No doubt.
And you can't prepare for it. The amount of responsibility that you have, and part of that, Sheets, is what we just talked about with the responsibility. You're so fine-tuned, you're so fine-focused on just your hitters, just your pitchers, just your infielders, just your catchers. And then you want to become an expert in that field. If you're an infield coach, you're going to start nuts and bolts from how we're going to stretch, how we're going to pre-throw, how our catch play program is going to work, what's the fundamental of everything from forehand, backhand, slow roller, and on with your team defense. But then the role expands. And I just don't think as a head coach or when you're an assistant that you truly can prepare for that, because there's things that you just don't consider. Right. You're not considering, when I'm working along Coach Bo at Kentucky, you're not considering as a head coach, I'm going to look at Coach Bohannon in a much different light because now he is working for me with that regard, because we're just boys as assistants. And when I say that, I just think that's the biggest piece that becomes different. Your plate becomes so much more large, and it goes from a group of a specific position group that you have to an entire team. And then there's that one piece that for me, I got really lucky on, and I was really fortunate that it worked out. My gut said hire good people.
Yeah.
I talked to enough head coaches that said just do that and you'll be fine. Put loyalty and trust over skill, which if I could offer any advice, would still hold true today.
Yep.
But even in that same point, my focal point in my first year or two was on the team, the players. My focal point was not enough on the assistant coaches. That is the fiber. That's the core.
No doubt.
That is the family. That's where it starts, and it's your
Wow.
coaching staff. And it's the culture that you have with your 4, 5, 6, or if you're really fortunate, more coaches than that. That's where it starts.
Yeah.
We were fortunate enough in New Mexico State that I had great people. I had loyal coaches and really hard workers and really talented coaches.
Sure.
Joel Mangum's in professional baseball now. Mike Brown is at Hawaii. He was in Omaha last year with Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Ben Jackson's a pitching coach now at Division II institution, and now our current coaching staff is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest change. And when you go into it, the focal point becomes bigger, but you've got to start with your coaches. You've got to have your vision truly in place, and then the next piece that you've got to do, which you weren't doing as an assistant,
Right.
is be truly locked in and fine-tuned on how do I want it to look, and then communicate it to your assistants. And I'll give you one last example to answer the question. Two-strike hitting. We've heard this a couple of times. Every hitting coach has talked about it.
No doubt.
Two-strike hitting. In the role of the hitting coach or the assistant coach,
Yeah.
there's going to be, we're going to move up 3 inches. We're going to come up on the bat 2 inches. We're going to get the foot down early. We're going to spread out. There's going to be a physical adjustment. There's going to be an approach adjustment.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be skill work involved in that. When you're the head coach, you're going to tell your hitting coach, I don't want our guys striking out. Now
We're
you
need to
go
have
to
a
work.
good two-strike approach.
Now go to work.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it goes, and I think that's where it has to go, and I think that's what you want as an assistant coach. So that would be the biggest change for me, is just in terms of when your roles change. But I think that's just so important. Is either way, though, there's got to be a vision in place, what you want. And I think that would be an example for me of, where you go or where you were and where you go, even though your goals are exactly the same.
Yeah, that makes
just
sense.
the attack point's different, yeah.
Offensively speaking, do you feel like, I asked Link this, because and again, pair you guys up, because similar in a lot of regards. That's what you and I talked about after the call. Like, we're similar in a lot of regards. We have different language and different approaches. But the question I hit him with, BG, was that does he feel like he's got a true now system, like a blueprint for where he goes? Do you feel like you're at that place? And then more than that, do you feel like you're constantly challenging it?
Well, I do feel like we have a system in place,
Okay.
and I think that the thing that I'm constantly challenging, we just talked about this last night.
Yeah.
This was a great conversation.
Teeing you up.
I was with Jay Johnson, and we were talking about this. But each and every year, my goal is to, of those 5 bullet points, can in 2019 those 5 become 4? And then in 20, can those 4 become 3? Really hard to do, extremely hard to do. In 2012, we have 6 checkpoints to the slot mechanically. We're going to be down. We've got elbow tuck. We've got the barrel angle. We've got the barrel position. We've got the elbow here. We've got this angle.
No doubt.
We've got 6 checkpoints to the slot.
Yeah.
And there is nothing wrong with that. You've got to know that to be able to communicate it and teach it effectively. But point being now, it becomes, to use that example, mechanically, what's important to you? Get athletic, get 50-50, be on time, be balanced, rotate to contact. And now can you take that for an example?
Yeah.
And can you turn that into 2.5 keys so your kids can go, all I need to do is this and this?
And I got it.
It might not be sexy, but they're going to remember it, and they're going to be able to go out and repetitively do it, and that's where guys can get better. So that's where I challenge it.
Yeah,
in
that's
terms
awesome.
in terms of having a system, was really awesome to listen to Link. I picked something up, which I knew I would.
Yeah.
But we have very similar terminology with offensive approach, even though the wording is different. There's a categorization of a pitcher, and I think you have to do that, which is, we had different terms, but that's the stuff that's exciting to me. For me, that's where the system starts, and then within that system, we as coaches all have offensive approaches. We all have identifying factors of how we want our kids to swing.
Sure.
We have a philosophy on, are we going to hit home runs? Are we going to play small ball? Are we going to balance? And then Sheets, the biggest thing is, in what I've heard so much, and we've all heard here in this convention, is identify it after evaluating it, but then the masters, the Tim Corbins, when you're listening to him, it's not about anything other than take that and then go apply it on the field. But be prepared to get it onto the field in knowing what you want, set up the drills, set up the practice time, set up the repetition.
Yeah.
And then it's going to come back and you're going to get what you want. But you can't do that if you don't have your system in place first. And
Wow.
then from there you go to work with your practice.
Good night. Okay. I told you I'd tee you up for this, and I think it's, we were talking a couple nights ago. We ran into each other. It's just, I'll tell you, maybe I don't tell you as much as I should, is just how proud I am to see what you've done there. As an alum, to go back to New Mexico State and just take it to unprecedented heights. And I want to tee you up for this because it's the, maybe for a coach listening to this, it's like, hey, take me inside of how you went about building the program, what's it built upon, and obviously just lay out the success that you guys have had so far.
Well, thanks for asking me that, and thanks for saying that.
Sure.
What an unbelievable ride it's been. There are so many stories to tell with regards to this, but in 2014 and in March, I see that New Mexico State, my alma mater, is getting a small stadium put in with 1,000 chair-back seats. They're going to put a sunshade in. Mind you, this is a single aluminum bleacher behind a chain link fence, 15, 20 years ago. So when I see that, as somebody who played there, always thought there would be an opportunity to win there. It's a desert community with great weather, with great community support, with tremendous players along Interstate 10. A lot of things that could go well as long as there was some resource and some funding put in. So
Sure.
when I see that in March, I start to wonder, just, hey, maybe someday
Yep.
if. And that's where it started. 6 months later, I've got the job after interviewing. I went into the interview room with 3 simple concepts that are still important to us to this day, which is on top of my computer in my office, which is a reminder every day to when you get out and you say you're going to do something, you get out and you do it.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you can build trust and you can build faith within your community. But for us, Sheets, the vision going into it is that we were going to do 3 things. We were going to get out. Number one, first and foremost, we were going to inspire the community.
You've done that.
We have. Number 2, we were going to recruit and develop.
You've done that.
And then number 3, we were going to teach at a high level.
No doubt.
And then being able to, going into year 5 now, 4 years later, to be able to say that we've had 3 ranked classes from collegiate baseball, and we've had 12 kids in 3 years go to pro ball, to win 109 games the last 3 years after winning 11 in our first year, and then to go to 34 wins and have the biggest win improvement in college baseball year 2.
No doubt.
The AstroTurf comes in. We needed a facility change. We got that. Those things happen, and then you start chasing it and tasting it, and next thing you know, you're hugging your wife and crying, and you've won 40 games in a WAC tournament championship, going to a regional.
Yep.
The most exciting part of that is going into it where there were so many people that said we couldn't do it. That's what drives me.
Guarantee it.
I'm a runt. I'm a midget. I'm the guy who comes out of nowhere and might take a little longer to get there, but I'll keep our head down. And as an alum,
Yeah.
I really took on the responsibility because I truly wanted to go into a program, and because I had played there, I knew the community. I knew that if we got to the community and we got some funding, we could really create a buzz. We've set 3 attendance records there in the last 4 years. Things are going great. We've won the Community Service Award 3 times. And like I tell our kids, if anything you want in life, you go out and earn it.
Yeah.
So if we want fans to show up, well, let's not complain about why our fans don't show up. Let's not talk about our weather. Let's get out and inspire the community.
Yep.
And they'll inspire us back. You have to believe that in
Sure.
some capacity, which I do. So, but for us, it was really about, and still continues to be, all the reasons why we couldn't do it.
Right.
And we don't look at things that way. We looked at what we could do. So now, going into year 5 with a contract extension, and the community kicked in for that, and potentially a lot more facility enhancements coming.
Yeah.
I'm a proud alum, and we're really proud. And the coaching staff, that hug that we had in that dugout, knowing that it was 11 wins, and there was no light, and in fact, you were just in a dark tunnel.
Yeah.
And then the first recruiting class, those kids who believed and bought in, is 34 wins, and then it was 35, and then it was 40 in the tournament championship.
No doubt.
But I would like to share this because I've heard it a couple times in the convention. But that's when you really get the opportunity to thank someone. And Becky,
Yeah.
we hugged on the field for about 90 seconds in dead silence, and it was a big thank you for everything. for making the move from Kentucky, which was at time people considered maybe a risk. I considered it an adventure and an opportunity,
No doubt,
and an investment.
Yeah.
And we're doing things now, and it's really fun, and we love our kids. I love my coaching staff.
Yeah.
And hey, man, it's exciting.
It's awesome.
Yeah, year 5.
Awesome, no doubt.
Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, man, you got an Aggie fan living in Greensboro. You know that. I've always going to support you and what you're doing, and it's neat to see. You talked about inspiring the community. The community's gotten behind you in more than one way. I do want to just tee you up for this. I think it's something really neat. I know you do a lot of unique things within your program. I think the biggest might be when your kids show up on campus, take the selfies with the teachers.
Oh, yeah.
Open that up.
Well, you know, and again, Sheets, it's part of that concept for us that if you want something in life, go out and earn it.
Sure.
If you want people to show up and support you, if we want more financial support, if we want more people in the stands, how are we going to do that? Well, we're not going to go out and beg. We're going to earn that opportunity.
Yeah.
So for us, inspire the community is focal point number 1. Coach Green, you said in your press conference you were going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as soon as you say that, it is your responsibility to defend what you said. That's what I think, and I think that's how you create integrity and character and trust. And I think if you can build trust within a group of people and a group of coaches and a community, I think you got something pretty awesome potentially to go to. So we have what's called culture training at New Mexico State. It lasts for 2 weeks.
Awesome.
We don't get on the field for 2 weeks. Our first 2 weeks consist of doing everything that's going to allow us the best opportunity to at least begin to establish some culture within our program. That culture being who we're going to be, what our identity is going to be. So that starts with meet the teacher. Our kids are required to, on the first 3 days of school, they're required to send me, and it has to come to me so I can see it. And we've gotten some doozy sheets. I mean, there have been some real winners. But the kids send me 2, and I force them, make them, and teach them how important it is to create a relationship with your professor.
Absolutely.
What an awesome opportunity.
No brainer.
You get to go up and you get to say, hello, sir, I'm representing New Mexico State baseball as one of the baseball players. Would like to introduce you to myself. Immediately, you have just put yourself in a position for success because that teacher knows you, and more importantly, you know that.
Yeah.
You're probably going to find yourself closer to the front row, and you're going to find yourself locking in a little more. So the kids send out 2 pictures with their professors. They send it to me, and then I just social media it out. And I show every professor and our kids that's going out. It's called Meet the Professor Campaign, and that's what it is every year. That's where it starts. From there, we'll find a mountain to go hike. We'll go over the core values of the team. For us, our Aggie acronym of Aggie Up Passion. We'll talk about that. The kids will introduce themselves to each other. We'll have one community service project, and that can vary from, you name it, building a ramp. That can be bringing in a special needs group. Usually do that later in the fall, but that can happen within the first 2 weeks. And then at that point, after we've done that, then we get on the field.
Yeah.
You got enough time for baseball. Being cool is a really big thing.
No doubt.
And I think it's really important to protect the image and the coolness of the kids. And I think before they get on the field, get them together, get them to know each other, and get them to at least start thinking about a family and understand that there is a teammate there. It's not just entirely about you.
Yeah.
Then we'll go out on the field, and it's worked really well for us.
So awesome. Gosh. Keep doing what you're doing, man. We're following along.
Yeah, thanks for everything.
No doubt, man. Keep crushing this convention, man. I see you bebopping around. You're mixing it up with guys.
Mixing it up.
I just love, again, when we got recording, was just the fact that the conversations are happening. You're meeting new people. That just, again, accentuates what this brotherhood means, and it sounds like you're killing it on the floor.
Well, it's the learning is exciting. It's a drug, and,
no doubt.
And it really is. It's you can feel it. My energy is, and Sheets, I haven't slept much, and I think most of the coaches would agree here. We're not sleeping, but our energy is still off the charts. Because you feel like you're making an investment in yourself. You feel like your program is getting better. That's how I feel. This convention is, like I was telling you. This convention is that last spot where you check your lineup one more time, the numbers, the positions, and you're about ready to go out and turn that thing into the umpire. But it's become a lot more than that in terms of the people that you're meeting and talking to. And I just get better every year because I just feel like the flow of the convention and the camaraderie of the coaches. There's a real openness to just stick your hand out and there's a real openness to just give it right back.
No doubt.
And because of that, I think that that's why the game is at an all-time high in terms of people getting better.
No doubt.
And I just appreciate the opportunity that you're giving us, and what the ABC is doing, and the convention has become an epic event. So it's awesome.
So
and,
we'll see you in Nashville.
I probably are going to be in Nashville.
I might be there too.
Yeah.
No, awesome, man. Well, obviously, good luck this year as you guys, and you get
Thank
the
you.
Aggies rolling this year. We appreciate you jumping on with us, Greedy.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Sheets. Appreciate it, brother.
Awesome.
Thank you.
No doubt.